All right. Let's just see. Yes, that'll work a lot better. All right, let's just get all the formalities out of the way. Today is Friday, June 7th, 2024, and this is my little Bible study. We're back here at Humble Hearts Ministry again on Friday night class. All right. I guess the theme behind the scenes kind of been basic, right? That's what we've been talking about. You've heard, I'm sure you've heard on Sundays. You've heard me use it last week. Last week we were talking about baptism, right? Now, I want to remind you, just because somebody says something is basic, the word means base, which means it's something common in your Christian toolkit. It should be from cover to cover, from one side of Christianity to the other, and that's what base means. I just don't want you to think that it means in any way shallow or not looking a little bit deeper. All right, we took a pretty good look at baptism last week. All right, tonight's subject is the resurrection body. All right, now the resurrection is one of the most iconic and important. Oh, thank you, sir. The whole Christian landscape is the idea of resurrection, Christ being resurrected from the dead. Right, and we spent a little bit of time talking about that. Right. Now today we're not going to actually talk so much about Christ's resurrection, but just the idea of a resurrection in general. What does the Bible actually say about it? As usual, I like to start with what does it actually mean. All right, and here, let me adjust this just a little bit. All right, the idea of resurrection in your Strong's Concordance in the Greek Index is 386. All right, and so you guys get to see how many mistakes I actually make now. Welcome to my world. All right. No, I guess I shouldn't have this on. Not just yet. I'll have that some other time.
Yeah, you might drink it.
Give me some.
Water up there.
I got plenty of water. Got it right there. I got the camel with me. That's right. All right. Now, it's a word you can tell everybody's seen it. It's anesthesius. All right. Here now I'm getting tongue-tied up in front of it. Yeah. Anesthesius. That's like anesthesiologist is what I'm trying to get out of my head, all right? All right, yeah. Anesthesius, yeah. What is an anesthetist? That's how you actually get it out. Anesthetist is the name. Man, why did I get stuck in there? It does it with English, too. Yeah. It's what?
Anesthesia.
Yeah. Right, but an anesthetist, all right, and it literally means to stand up again. All right, and you can see how that applies to anesthesiology, right? They lay them down and they do some work on them, make them better, and then they stand them up again. All right, but in Greek, it's literally resurrection. That's what it means. All right. Now, it can mean a couple of things, like resurrection from the dead. All right, but it's also figuratively a moral recovery of a spiritual truth. All right. Now, it becomes very important on that because that means that the idea of resurrection doesn't just apply to a body, but it applies to knowledge as well. All right? Because you're talking about literally a moral recovery of a spiritual truth. And when you have that, it elevates you to a higher order of thinking. All right? But it means to stand up again is what anesthetist actually means. Or what resurrection actually means. First place we're going to go is 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 35. We spent a lot of time here before, all right, and I've talked about the spiritual body from here. And now we're going to look at it just a little bit deeper and see what it actually says. All right, 15, verse 35. Father, we ask that this open eyes and open ears no matter where they are. In Jesus' name, amen. Messed that up, didn't I? All right, should have started there. All right, pick it up in verse 35. But some men will say, how are the dead raised up? And with what body are they come? All right. So we're talking about the resurrection. First thing he wants to know is how are they raised up? What does that mean to be resurrected? All right. Why? Because they know from life that when somebody dies, that body goes in a hole. All right. And so he's trying to figure this stuff out again. He's trying to figure out what he's actually talking about. How can this be done? All right, how's it raised up? And with what body are they coming? Because like I said, he knows what's in that hole. That's Uncle Joe. I was there. I buried him. I covered it up. I know he's there. Not a question in the mind. All right? How's he answer this? This is interesting, because it's going to come down pretty hard. Thou fool, that which thou sowest is not quickened except it die. Let's take the word fool first, all right? In your Strongs, it's 878, all right? And Zaphron, all right? It means mindless or stupid, all right? And fool. Egotist. Somebody only can think about themselves. They're stuck in their own ego. All right? Well, that's what he's saying when he says fool, because he kind of spared him a little bit of pain here, because fool, you can take that and kind of laugh that off, but if he called you a mindless, stupid, egotist, that might stick a little bit. All right? So that's really what he's trying to say. What's he say? That which thou sowest is not quickened. This term quickened is 2227, excuse me. And it's zoopoio, or zopoio. All right? And it means to revitalize or to make alive. All right? So, what's he really saying up there? He said, look, you mindless idiot. The seed that you sow, which is flesh, right? So it's not made alive again. It's not resurrected. It's not reanimated. All right? Except it what? Except it die. All right? So both questions are there. This is what he's talking about. All right. Verse 37. And that which thou sowest not the body that shall be. All right? You know, so, but bear again it may chance of wheat or of some other grain. All right, he's going to start drawing out an analogy here about bodies. He's going to use grain. All right, let's think about this. Let's just go and see what it says. Verse 38 is where we were. Right. God giveth it a body as it pleaseth him, and to every seed his own body. All right, what happens? Because he's comparing seeds to the same as flesh bodies. Okay. So when the seed, as an agriculturist, then you kind of understand. A seed goes into the ground. It's one thing, right? But when it comes back out of the ground, it's something completely different. Yet, both exist within the seed. Both the seed and that small gene that begins the whole process of life. And in that process, that seed is completely used up. And when it sprouts out of the ground, the seed's not even there anymore. It's just like the human body. Once the spirit leaves, it goes back to dust, all right? Just like that. It doesn't even exist anymore. All right, so he's trying to use a very natural, people get kind of messed up here when they start talking about this, but he's really using a really natural kind of a thing to explain something that's very spiritual, something that he can see example of. They're aggregated people anyway, all right? So he should be catching that pretty good, most of the people, all right? Verse 39. Now we're going to switch gears just a little bit. All flesh is not the same flesh, but there is one kind of flesh for man, another flesh for beasts, another for fishes, and another for birds. All different kinds of flesh, right? But man is only one of those types of flesh. Now at the second advent, what's it say about that? It's the end of what? All flesh, right? So that's a complete change, just like we've talked about from the first heaven and earth age to now. It's a complete change when he shows up. So, like I said, if you look down here, no matter who stands in front of you, walking on water, raising the dead, claiming to be Jesus, all right, if you're still in your flesh body, well, then the real Christ is not here. All right, and that's the best thing you can do, and that has to do with these actual bodies, actually. All right, so all kind of flesh. But out of all that kind of flesh, what does it say? There are also celestial bodies and bodies terrestrial. All right, we've broken this down before. All right, celestial bodies of the abode of God. All right, terrestrial, terra firma, the earth, the eretz, the soil itself. All right, terrestrial, earthly flesh. All right, so everybody, like he's saying, just like that seed, when the flesh goes in that ground, just like that seed, a whole nother creature arises out of it. Okay? Now, of course, the glory of the celestial is one, but the glory of the terrestrial is another. All right? Go back to that idea of resurrection. All right? When you're in your spiritual body, all right, you recover a moral idea, or how to put it for resurrection. I'm going to go back and get it right. All right? It's a moral recovery of a spiritual truth. You've elevated your mind to a higher order of thinking is what I was trying to get out. All right, so in a celestial body, the glory that it has is one thing. And if you study your Bible at all, you have all kinds of stories in the book about people who have encounters with spiritual creatures. Gabriel, we're studying, the Christian era. Gabriel shows up a bunch of times. Zacharias, John the Baptist's father, he's struck dumb, can't speak because of his doubt when dealing with him. So in a spiritual body, your mind is elevated to a higher order of thinking. But here in a terrestrial body, the glory of it, well, there's a lot of things that's about. What's first thing is that you're complying with God and you've actually been born to the flesh because you're not one of the Nephilim or one of those kinds. All right. Verse 41. There is one glory for the sun, another glory for the moon, and another glory for the stars, and one star differeth from another star in glory. All right. There's a little bit more to this verse than what you would think. All right. Break down the symbols. I got to learn how to read off of here. This is a lot different from looking at here. All right, break down the symbols. What's it say? We're talking about the sun and the moon. All right, so you talk about the sun. The sun is what? It's the light that's in our solar system. So the thing that gives light to everything that we know. All right, what's the moon? The moon is one of those subjects with objects that are sitting out there in space that without the sun would just be dark. All right, the moon has doesn't reflect. They thought for thousands of years that there was something going on that's making the light. It doesn't make a bit of light. It's just a reflection of the true light in the universe. All right, we see this set up. This is some symbology that's used all the way back, day one of creation here. Remember the first day, let there be light? All right, what was the action though that was taken was the division of the light from the dark. All right. Now, if you study with me, you went right there. You went to Luke chapter 16, where we've been many times here talking about heaven with the division. That's where you see the division of the light from the dark. All right, but nonetheless, it's echoing this symbology here. All right, stars. It says one star different from one star in glory. Look out there in the universe, and every star is different. Scientists categorize them according to how big, how old, the color of light. All right, but everyone is completely different. But in Isaiah chapter 14, verse 13, listen to what it says about stars. For thou hast said in thine heart, speaking to Lucifer, I will ascend into the heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit upon the mount of the congregation in the side of the north. All right, here in Isaiah, the term star is for a soul. All right, that's what Lucifer wanted to do in the first heaven and earth age, was to elevate his throne above that even of God. Okay? But here stars are referred to as the B'nai Elohim, the sons of God, that we've talked about before. All right? So in the above verse, we're actually talking about a little bit more than we're talking about. We're talking about the division of the light, the true light from the reflection of the light. Lucifer, it means a morning star by reason of his brightness because he's a reflection of who created him in the first place. All right? He has no ability to shine on his own except that his power that God gave him from his creation. Okay? And those stars that are different, they're not necessarily the big burning balls of gas that are out there in the universe. It's the big burning balls of gas that are flesh men and women walking around on the earth that they're really talking about. And just like those stars out there, each person is unique and individually different. Okay, should be enough said about that. Verse 42, back in 1 Corinthians 15. So also is the resurrection of the dead. It is sown in corruption and raised in incorruption. All right? Corruption, sown of flesh. All right? Corrupted from the beginning, right? But it is what? It is resurrected in an immortal form. All right? When we're talking about a body here. All right? Verse 43. It is sown in dishonor. It is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness. It is raised in power. All right? All those things are associations between the flesh body and the celestial body that we've been talking about. All right? It is sown a natural body, and it is raised a spiritual body. There is a natural body, and there is a spiritual body. So he's going out of the way to draw out the distinction because remember during Christ's time, I mean, there's nothing new under the sun, but the religions, the big religions during his time was the Pharisees and the Sadducees, right? Well, the Pharisees believed in life after death, but the Sadducees didn't. All right? And they're the ones, the Sadducees, are the ones that are always coming to Christ with talking about the resurrection. Well, in the resurrection, who's doing this? In the resurrection, whose wife is she going to be? All right, it's always these people coming to Christ who are Sadducees asking these things about the resurrection and don't even believe that the resurrection occurred in the first place. All right, there ain't nothing new under the sun. You go out and talk to people, you get the same kind of a deal. All right, it ain't even, sometimes it is in church, but it can be on the street too, just the same. All right, so they're like I said, nothing new under the sun. As it was in the beginning, so shall it be in the end. All right? All right. Now, that reminds me, before we go on with natural. Next week, all right, I'm tired of these independent studies. We're going to start a book. All right? Because I don't teach independent studies like this very well. All right, but I teach books a lot better. Now, the reason why is when you do independent studies, all right, it's real easy to mislead people. Really is. You can pull some voodoo from over here and some voodoo from over here, and you can make any voodoo you want in the middle. All right. The way that you avoid that is by studying line by line and verse by verse. What does it actually say? All right. So we're going to do the book of Revelation. And again, I teach it about once a year, really. I mean, really, it's a book that needs to be taught, and nobody gets it. All right. And I'll just say I'll try and teach it good enough that if you need help staying in this program, it might just help you a little bit. All right. Because I'll give you a unique perspective on it. All right. And that'll help keep you here because you're going to find out what's getting ready to happen. And when you start understanding that, you'll understand exactly where to put your feet. All right? And I'm pretty serious about teaching that book. That's one of the books I'm cleared to actually teach. So that and about Israel. And we'll be picking that back up because I ain't forgot about that either. All right?
You mentioned the Sadducees. That was Sanhedrin?
Yeah, they're members of Sanhedrin, right?
And Saul he wasn't Sanhedrin, was he?
No, he's probably one of the Pharisees, isn't that?
Pharisees.
Yeah, because he would have been.
Caiaphas was Pharisee.
And he studied under Gamaliel.
Yeah.
So, and Gamaliel's this Old Testament Torah dude that just could tear it up. I mean, like unreal. And that's who Paul started. See, Paul was a good student. He really
They
was.
didn't believe in the resurrection.
And the Sadducees didn't know.
So Sadducees believed, but did they believe after death?
No, they believe once you die, it's done.
Pharisees believed
The after death, right? The
still
Pharisees.
waiting for the coming
Right, that's right. They were still waiting. And the Sadducees, that's why when you read it and you notice it's the Sadducees that are always bringing the questions to Christ about the resurrection. It's like they're standing there mocking him, really. Because he knows what they believe. He can reach in their mind and know what they're thinking. So he knows they're mocking him when they're bringing these things before him. All right, but back on this. All right, this term natural, right, is 5591 in your Strong's. All right, and it means an animate. Animate just means to give the appearance of motion. Okay? So this natural body that's shown, just like it was raised from the dust, all right, from the spiritual body standpoint, that's just like a cartoon where we draw and give an appearance to motion. All right? Because that, when the dust has a spirit within it, it becomes a human. All right? And it has the appearance of motion until dust does, until that soul departs, and then it returns right back to the dust again. All right. That's why I thought that was an interesting word, natural, to be put in there. And I want to know exactly what it was, and that's what it actually means, right? Now, we've been talking about the resurrected body, all right? Yeah, when you die, well, that's what happens, right? Well, we'll go back to Luke chapter 16 again. There's some things that I want to talk about there, because here you have an example of what it means when the clay pot is broken. But first, let's go to Exodus chapter 12, verse 6 and 7. Or, excuse me, Ecclesiastes. All right. Now, when that happens is upon death. Listen to what it says in Ecclesiastes. Whenever the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain, or the wheel be broken at the cistern. These are all Hebrew figures of speech that when you pass from this life. Okay? Now, New Agers have grabbed onto this term silver cord, and if you know anything about like astrology and the astral projection or anything like that, that's one of the places that they've used the Bible to actually coin that silver cord. They'll say if you see a silver cord, and as long as it stays attached to your body, you can go anywhere in the universe, blah, 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 whatever. But this is where they grabbed that from, is here in this. But what it means, they're killing, they're keying off of what it says here, that when that silver cord snaps, when it comes loose, buddy, you're dead. You die.
DNA.
Right. Yeah. And the other ones is the golden bowl be broken, the pitcher be broken at the fountain, all right, or the wheel be broken at the cistern. All right. Then what? When that happens, then what? In verse 7, then shall the dust return to the earth as it was. Just like that seed. All right. And the spirit shall return to God who gave it. All right, pretty simple, right? So, upon death is when you receive a resurrected body. All right. And I'm going out on a way to draw that out really good, is because you have a huge segment of Christianity that expects at the second advent for their dad to come out of that hole. Okay? Well, their dad's not in that hole. That is not where they are. Why? Because when that silver cord was loosed, they were resurrected a new creature. Remember, we talked about baptism. This is tied to that. That's that same symbology.
Well, they
Right?
get that from, it says, the dead in Christ shall rise.
That's right. Okay.
So they lay in the grave. till
Okay, but
something
they're
happens.
not though. But that, okay,
That's where they get that at.
that is okay. But all that means is they already have. They've already risen upon death. They're resurrected. That's right. That's right. And it hurts people because they have family members that may have been cremated. Okay, and you see the problem here? Because you like my mom was cremated. All right, and if I believed that, that would tear me up. Because how could my mother be resurrected if she's just dust? Unless what's wrong anyway. That's right. It doesn't matter because you're done with that body, and when you're done with it, you are resurrected with another one in your actual body. All right, now I just tell you that because we all have relatives that have passed on. Don't let anybody put that kind of guilt on you. All right, now, they're the ones that err in the way they're examining. Remember, you have to tear this. There's a thing called righteous righteous indignation. All right, Christianity's full of it.
Well, it's proven fact that the spirit,
Yes,
the inner man leaves the
that
body
leaves
one
the
day.
body, right? And you
Goes
see,
somewhere.
that's right. It goes. What did it say? The Bible says back to
God.
God where it came from, right? In that spiritual body.
Scientifically proven.
That's what you don't die. That's for sure. All right, now we're going to talk about Lazarus and the rich man. The clay pot's broken for both of these old boys. All right, if you remember the story, well, Lazarus, he's a beggar sitting out at the rich man's gate, right? And this dude's living scrumptiously, so he's probably overweight. All right, Lazarus, he's going to die of some disease out laying with dogs. All right, listen to what it says in verse 22 of 16 of Luke. And it came to pass, the beggar died and was carried to the angels and to Abraham, in Abraham's bosom, and the rich man also died and was buried. All right, death came for both of them just the same. Rich man had a heart attack from eating the fat of the land. The beggar was poor and died of a disease because nobody cared. But either way, they both died a flesh death. What happens to them? Listen to verse 23. And in hell, he lifted up his eyes, being tormented, seeing Abraham afar off and Lazarus at his bosom. All right. So, did these guys, when they died, were they in a hole in the ground? No, they're in heaven. Just like I said in Ecclesiastes. Just like my mama. Just like some, maybe not here, but some people that have children that have passed. Oh, God, I can imagine that terror. Trying to bury one of your children. I watched my grandma and one of my aunts do it, and it's not something I want to experience, I promise you. All right? But nonetheless, they're not in a hole in the ground. Where are they at? Now, this word hell, we're going to tear this apart because people get false doctrines about this. All right, that still hurt people. And I'm tired of people standing up in these pulpits and hurting people needlessly. All right, hell here is 86 in your Greek concordance, and it's Hades. All right, these are Greek-speaking people. All right, they're not English-speaking people. To them, they have a concept of what happens to dead people when they die already within their culture. It's called Hades. All right, it's the place of departed souls, or the state of departed souls. And both, it's going to apply here in Luke in both cases. All right? And so it's not hell. Where you die, you go back to where? You go back to God. All right? So you face some judgment, some kind of judgment. It's not the final white throne judgment, but you're sorted at that point because you're put on one side of that. Remember that gulf, that great Gulf of Fix, the Magnus Chasma Styrizzo? Magus Chasma Styrizzo, one side or the other. And here, this man, he's on the other side in Tartarus. All right? Not in hell. I don't want you to build a doctrine of eternal damnation of hellfire here. All right? I don't want you to build it here. But I do want you to understand what's being talked about. So that's right there in heaven. I know it says hell, but where the place the state of departed souls at? They're in heaven, one side of that gulf or the other. All right, so you can talk about the issue of the language all you want, as long as you understand where they're at. All right? What's he see there? All right? 24. And he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me and send Lazarus, that he may dip his finger into water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented with this flame. Sounds like hell, right? Okay, hold on now. Here we're in a parable. All right? So parable means you got to stop and think about what they're talking about. All right, so you're being given a lot of symbols here, and some people don't really realize it. All right, first he wants his finger. He wants water. All right, we talked about the flame, right? The cleansing flame. All right, what cools God's judgment? The water of life. Puts out that fire, that anger side anyway. All right. All right. So you see what he's really asking him for. He's using symbols that we should understand as Christians. Dip your finger in the water of life and please, give me a little bit. Okay? So it is tongue, and cool my tongue for my torment, for I am tormented in this flame. This is a self-torment. What's he doing? He's standing down the other side of this gulf that he can't cross. He's looking at the beggar that laid in his front yard, cuddled up with Abraham, having a good time, and he realizes he's screwed up. Okay, he knows he's in trouble now. He's like, everything they told me was true, and I made the wrong choices. And now he is tormented, and he wants the water of life because he wants to cross the other side where he knows everybody else is having a lot better time. Okay? Listen to what he says. But Abraham said, Son, remember that thou in thy lifetime receiveth thy good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. But now he is comforted, and thou art tormented. All right? Well, see, so justice does come around. All right? But don't give up on this rich man yet. And we'll get that in just a second. Listen to what he says. All right? But Abraham said, Son, wrong verse. Verse 26. And besides all this between us, there's a great gulf of Fix. This is this Magus Chasma Styrizzo, the dividing line between the light and the dark in heaven. All right, and Lazarus is on one side, and the rich man's on the other, and he's not happy about it. All right? And what does it say about that? So that they which would pass from thence to you cannot, neither can they pass to us that would come from thence. There's nobody going across it. But if you remember, when Christ was yet in the tomb, he received the keys to hell and death. All right? Hell again, Tartarus. Where'd he go? On the other side of the gulf, where the souls were, where Lazarus would be. Or not Lazarus, where the rich man would be. All right? And there he preached the gospel. I figured the place emptied out at that point. All right? Now, I know since then it's filled up again. All right? But then that's why we got the millennium, straightens all that out. All right? Now, verse 27. And then he said, I pray thee therefore, Father, that thou wouldest send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brethren, that they may testify unto them, lest they also come into this place of torment. All right. Now here I'm going to put my little pitch in for the rich man. All right. Now, I don't hear a lot of people talking about this. But the rich man, what is his concern? He could say, oh, please have pity on me. Let me go across. All right? But what's he thinking about? He's thinking about his brothers in his father's house. All right? He's not thinking about himself at this point. At this point, he goes, aha. So maybe he's learned some things, is my point. All right? And maybe you start to see why maybe you have a millennium, have people that get a little bit of slack maybe cut in the millennium and going into the millennium, not coming out of it. That's a little bit different. That's right. Now, so that's what he's saying, right? He's saying, please, you don't, okay, I'm stuck over here, but please go back to them. There's a chance for them if you'll just go back and tell them. Send somebody, please. All right? And he said, right, verse 28, never mind. Verse 29. And Abraham said unto him, they had Moses and the prophets. All right? Let them hear them. And he said, nay, Father Abraham, but if one went unto them from the dead, they would repent. Now, wait a minute. Exactly what the rich man is asking somebody to do happened. All right? One did come back from the dead. All right? So, you get it? He's telling him, what's he say then? Right? Because we're talking about Christ here. He's saying send somebody back. Because they believe a dead man that come back from the dead, they would believe every word that he said. All right? But yet, when Christ resurrected, we spent a lot of time last week talking about that. All right? About the time between the resurrection and the day of Pentecost, right? All right. All right, so here you got Christ did resurrect. And he's telling, what's he telling though, all right? And he said unto him, if they hear not Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded, though one rose from the dead. Not that it would, but one did. So he's telling them they aren't going to believe him. If they don't believe Moses, if they don't believe the prophets, both old and new, they ain't going to believe somebody raised from the dead. Okay, so you get what he's saying? And even Christ says this over and over in the New Testament. If you study it a little bit, you'll hear him make the comment. Like, none that have come to me that first didn't come from God through Moses and the prophets, right? They understood that it seems like sometimes modern Christianity has the idea that the idea of the Messiah was a new idea. All right, but it's not. That goes all the way back to Garden of Eden, and that stuff was being talked about. Whoa, if I don't fall over. All right? So, it's not a new one. That was a completion of a major segment. All right? Nonetheless, okay, so here, that should pretty much covered it. So, what's the Bible say there? When you die, you don't go in a hole in the ground. You go to God, and you're resurrected in another body. Don't let anybody send somebody on a guilt trip that says that their father's in a hole in the ground as worm dirt. He's not. Just like he said, just like that seed that we were talking about. Once that plant comes, that seed goes away. You can't find it again. All right? Same thing. He said that was just like the resurrection. All right. Now we're going to start getting down the nitty gritty. All right. All these causes that we've been looking at are all natural causes, right? Rich man, fat, ate himself to death. Lazarus died of some dog disease somewhere. All right, but those would be classified as natural causes. All right. Now, well, we have deaths that do stem from other than natural causes. All right, and that's why we have law that regards murder. Or regards slaying of human, right? If you're following along your Bible, you're going to Deuteronomy chapter 19, right? Now, we're going to be looking at some stuff here. When someone severs your silver cord or kills somebody kills somebody, we're talking about a manslayer. Now, don't let that flip into murder just yet, all right? All right, but listen to what it says. When the Lord thy God hath cut off all the nations whose land the Lord thy God giveth thee, and thou succeedest them and dwellest in their cities and in their houses, thou shalt separate 3 cities for thee unto the midst of thy land, which the Lord thy God giveth thee to possess it. Thou shalt prepare thee a way and divide the coast of thy land, which the Lord thy God giveth thee to inherit, into 3 parts, that every slayer may flee thither. All right, did you catch that? This is called the city of refuge. All right. We talked about tribes. The tribe of Levi didn't have any inheritance in the land. They didn't have any land as part of their tribe. they were God's inheritance, right? God was their inheritance. But they did have Levite cities, which were called cities of refuge. All right, and that's what this is talking about. He says, when you go in there all through the coast of Israel, through all the land, divide it up into 3 sections so that anybody that gets killed, whoever killed them, can flee and get to one of these cities. It's to avoid a lynch mob, right? So that there's actually some kind of resemblance of actual justice that comes down for this death. That's why they're going to the Levite cities, because the Levites were the only ones that could read. They were the only ones that knew what the law said, so they were the only ones that knew how to judge the case. All right? And that's why they're going to the cities of refuge. Levites don't have any land, but they got some cities, and this is where the judge. This is just another way of saying our judicial system, like different courts, the Supreme Court, things like that. All right. Now, we don't have cities of refuge, but the law does kind of make that provision for us. If somebody gets killed, the law is your sanctuary. It's supposed to be. As you go to there, you keep some next of kin from killing you in some cases, right? All right. So we don't have cities of refuge, but we do have a place that kind of should be for safety in case somebody gets killed. So let's start examining the cases, all right? Verse 4. And this is the case of the slayer. Well, let me see. And this is the case of the slayer, which shall flee thither, that he may live. Whosoever killeth his neighbor ignorantly, whom he hath hated not in times past. Listen to what it says. As when a man goeth into the woods with his neighbor to hew wood, and his head fetcheth a stroke, and the axe with an axe to cut down the tree, and the head slippeth from the heave, and lighteth upon his neighbor, that he die, he shall flee unto one of these cities and live. All right? So this is just a work accident, right? This is ignorantly. It means these boys were working, they were friends, they've been working together for 15 years, and this dude just got killed accidentally. Well, why does this dude have to flee? All right? The answer's in the next verse. Listen to what it says. Lest the avenger of blood pursue the slayer, while his heart is hot, and overtake him, because the way is long, the way to the city is long, and slay him, whereas he was not worthy of death, inasmuch as he hated him not in times past. So here he's flatly calling out this is just an accident. But somebody's still dead. Now, this slayer, right? You know what another name for the slayer, for the avenger of blood is? It's a kinsman redeemer. It would have been the kinsman redeemer. It's the guy that died, it's his closest kin. It would have been either his daddy or maybe his brother. So you see what happens. These boys were working. Maybe daddy don't like this guy anyway, even though they've been friends for a long time. Ever heard anything like that? And daddy mad because his son is dead. He had the right to avenge his blood if he doesn't get to the city. Leviticus covers this even more. He got to get through those gates to that city, all right? And judgment's what happened. That gate's symbolic. Through those gates, that's where judgment took place, all right? But nonetheless, so he flees to the city. What happens there? Well, he talks to the priest, who's the judge, and they present a case. Said, no, I got 2 witnesses that say they were there. We were having a good time, laughing. There was no bad blood. It was truly an accident. Or you might have 2 other dudes that said, no, we were sitting in the woods, and we saw him kill him and then knock the heave out of the head of the axe and say it was an accident. But the point is there was a trial. There was an inquiry. Find out what happened, what really were the facts involved. The Bible in no time supports lynch mob justice at any time. It has to be done correctly. Verse 8. And if the Lord thy God enlarge the coast that he has sworn unto his fathers, and give thee all the land which he has promised to give unto thy fathers, and if thou keep all his commandments to do them, including this one that we're getting ready to talk about, which I command you this day, to love the Lord thy God, and to walk ever in his ways, then thou shalt add 3 more cities for thee besides these 3. So there were, on the other side of the Jordan River, there over time became 3 more cities of refuge. So you had 6 spread out through the entire 12 tribes of Israel, all right, to where every flee, this is just your court system being set up, all right? Now, here we go. Verse 10. that that innocent blood, that innocent blood be not shed in thy land, which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance. And so blood be upon them, all right, if you don't do it. All right, now, this is what it says. If any man hate his neighbor and lie in wait and rise up against him and smite him mortally that he die, and fleeth into one of these cities, then the elders of the city shall send and fence him thence and deliver him to the hands of the avenger of blood that he may die. Okay? Now, buddy, that's just plain English. All right, what was the distinction? The distinction was what? He premeditated. He laid in wait. It was intentional homicide. All right? Now, this guy, the only sentence that could be handed down by the priest then would be death at the end. It's fine if it's by the state. All right? Now, then the elders of the city shall send, very bad. Verse 13, thine eyes shall not pity him, but thou shalt put away the guilt of innocent blood from Israel, that it may go well with thee. All right, now let me ask you, I don't know how many of you guys follow the news, how many days, though, have we ever went in the last 3-4 years where there's not been a mass shooting somewhere in the United States?
Don't happen.
It doesn't happen ever, huh? Yeah, exactly. If you didn't notice, that is called heavily laden sarcasm. Right. It's crazy. It's absurd. Me and my dad, we're both ex-Marines. We love the Second Amendment, but even we sit around and go, look, we got to do something. I mean, come on, we have to do something. We got to keep these people from going into schools and killing kids. Well, the answer's been in the book for the whole time. What does it say? Then the elders of the city shall send and fetch him thence, and deliver him into the hand of the avenger of blood, that he may die. All right? Plain and simple. If we took out, okay, everybody, you go, yeah, now you want to get mad, let's get mad now. If you start following these cases where these knuckleheads are going in and pleading insanity or whatever the hell it is that they're doing, all right, almost none of them get a death sentence. Texas will. Texas will put in a fast line if they got to. If you do it in front of enough people, they got an express lane on execution if it's heinous, right? Now, if nationwide, these people died that were doing these things, just like the book says, imagine that some knucklehead rape and kill a little girl, like 3 little girls. You think Daddy wouldn't be willing to pull the trigger? Right, or the switch, or give him the shot, or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Then it would be justified.
Yeah, that is the Avenger of Blood, and that's exactly why the Avenger of Blood is in there. Now, let me tell them this. Go take this to a spiritual level now. All right, who is your kinsman redeemer? Christ Himself. All right, He is your Avenger of Blood. All right, so that's just a little food for thought to think that in the end, that's who really settles this. All right, now. We talked about this. Now, there's a little bit more law when it comes to murder. You can't have a capital case that's the word of another person. You have to have more than one. You have to have 2 or more witnesses to the crime, all right? Or the case won't proceed forward in the Old Testament, right? That just kept me from going in and saying lies about you and you getting killed over it, all right? Now, the catch was that if you were one of those false accusers in the Old Testament, whatever penalty that you were seeking against somebody that you lied about was carried out on you.
And
their
family paid penalty.
That's right. Yeah. And so there was quite a bit to it. Now, all right. So we talked about 2 out of the 3 ways of dying. All right, at the beginning of it. First, or I guess 4 natural causes like the rich man and Lazarus. All right. You have accidental death, like there's cases of 2 men in the woods working. All right, we've all probably experienced something like that in our lives with people that we've known. Look around this room, you're old enough. But I'm not funny today. You guys must be tired. I think that's what it is. All right. So, and then we talked about a murder case. All right, the murder case, you give him up to the Avenger of Blood because Daddy'd like to see his dude dead because he's never going to see his little baby again. All right. If you got kids, that should strike real home with you. I know it does with me. And it's like, yeah, you take one of them, I'll take your life. And Jesus or no Jesus, I want to kill you. That's just the way it is. I may be out praying for forgiveness, but I'm telling you at first, while my heart is hot, I will want you dead. All right? I just know me. All right? And most of you probably feel the same way if it was one of your kids. That's just a common thing. All right, now let's talk about suicide. All right, because suicide is something that's hit pretty close here. And I didn't realize it when I first started here until I felt like something was not quite right, but I didn't know what it was that had happened. And all you guys that were here, I guess the last NDOC, heard a little bit about it. All right. And most of the feelings about suicide come from bad teaching from people up here. Okay. And it's because they're, well, we go back to that mental-minded guy, we were talking about earlier. Just they're silly or they're stupid when they're teaching from pulpits, especially to people who've experienced loss, when they should be consoling and showing them some kind of sympathy. They actually just, hurt them even more, if you could imagine that. All right. Now, suicide is self-murder. It's flat out. All right. It fits the definition of murder perfectly. They lied in wait, carried out the crime. Okay. Now, in the flesh, the murderer would be turned over to the avenger of blood so that they would die. Okay. Now, at that point, what really goes on? Where did they go? Remember, we've been talking about the resurrected body. There was a point to this resurrected body stuff, right? All right. From the time that this person, that the avenger of blood kills this guy, all right, for murdering his son, all right, they're both in heaven with God. All right, and that's where your real trial is. Okay, that's where it really happens. All right. So the thing that's different with murder here is you have to wait to get both people in the same room with God before the real trial begins. All right. Now the thing with suicide is the letter of the law has been completed with the suicide. Both the killer and the victim have been laid to rest. Okay, so the letter of the law for somebody who lies in wait and murders has been carried out with suicide. You get what I'm saying? The thing that's different, the thing that makes it unique than just a regular murder or an accidental death, is that at that exact instant, both the victim and the criminal are the same person. Now, let me ask you something about God. And you've had enough Bible in you now to know. Do you think God doesn't know how that person is hurting? That's right. He knows. He knows exactly what. And he knows, all right, if they were hurting that bad, all right, he understands that. All right. So, according to the law has been fulfilled in that case. Murderer now stands dead and is there being judged with God. All right, at that point, it's up to God. All right. Now, I'll ask you what you think of God and let it just sit with that. It becomes your own opinion then at that point. What do you think he does?
I mean, let's say you're not in your right mind, you're mentally ill.
That's right.
He can understand.
That's right.
Or you're so broken, look.
Yeah, so broken. Yeah, just so despotic. I mean, I've seen people. I kid you not. I've seen this in my life. There was a friend of mine in the Marine Corps.
It's in a mass suicide or a murder suicide.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The Bible says he knows every hair on your head.
That's right. That's right.
You breathe life and you take it away.
That's right. And
they teach it.
Even in a murder suicide, though, both the victim and the criminal are at the same place. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You can't cheat God.
That's right. You can't. God knows. He's a heart knower, so he knows that this person, just girl we're talking about here, he knows she was hurting on the inside. All right, and she felt like there was no hope, even though there were people around her trying to help her. All right, but that happens with many people who commit suicide.
A lot of people that commit suicide. My son, because of my actions in my life and the way I became and what I did and how I acted, it provoked my son. So in my eyes, I killed my son. I asked for forgiveness for that daily. Do I think Lord would forgive me? I don't know. Because
I can answer your question.
But he does.
Yeah, that's right. That's
but as a human being, I don't feel that way.
Oh, that's
because
right.
I caused my son's death.
Okay, you feel like you caused it, all right? Now,
but
you're done. What you're doing is you're not absolving yourself, and that's great. All right, that's great. That's part of everything. All right, but suicide is not an unforgivable sin.
No, blasphemy.
But blasphemy against the Holy Spirit is, and when we do the Book of Revelation, you're going to understand exactly what that is.
They-
You're gonna find they don't have nothing to do with
They
suicide.
try
and nothing
teaching
like
that is blasphemy.
That's it, but that's not it.
No.
They're biblically ignorant and don't know what you're talking about. All right, your son is in a good place. We've just studied what's going on. All right, this is called Where Are the Dead. All right, and this helps people when they understand, especially the compassion that God has for His children. All right, if they're hurting that bad, He feels the ache.
Well, like,
All right,
me and my, see, the things I did led up to, I feel did that, but the Lord has compassion. Grace is sufficient.
that's correct.
And how I deal with it is I don't ever treat anybody like that again.
That's good. That's perfect.
And
You know what that's
and
called?
I let them know, look,
That's
the Lord
perfect.
loves them.
You know what that's called? That's called repentance. All right.
100%.
That's what that's called. All right, and that's what makes Christianity wonderful.
Yes.
All right, and let me tell you, your son, there's much hope. Let me tell you something else. All right, you were here. Were you here when we studied Ezekiel 44? Good, because if you're one of them that doesn't ever bear the mark of the beast, we're going to get in this book of Revelation. If you're one of them, if your son's having problems in the millennium, you will go help him. Okay, remember that group that was inside the inner sanctum? They took the orders from Christ, took the other group of priests that bore the mark and had to bear their iniquity for it, and they take it to the people. But you, as one of them that wouldn't bear the mark, you'll be able to take your clothes, the glorified state, place it in one of those chambers, and go out into your son and minister to him for 1,000 years to get him through the millennium. You have God's promise. So if you ever wanted to work for something, there it is. If you feel guilty, if you feel like it, then you stay in that book, and you stay in this program and you keep working. That's everybody. I'm tired of seeing faces going. I want to say it get bigger because people keep staying. All right, and if you teach this book the right way, especially the book of Revelation, it'll fill this place, and it'll make you stay and give you a place and make you feel better. All right, because man, you guys are going through some hard stuff.
Now, I've heard, and I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes, but growing up, you know, I was in church and then I was out of church. I heard this from a lot of Christian people. The only way you don't go to heaven is if you commit suicide.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, but that's not.
So
That's just
totally false.
That's totally false. Anybody who dies goes to God. Everybody who dies goes to God. Right there. If you're to be absent from this body is to be present. Yes, sir. Is to be present with the Lord.
That's all he taught.
That's 90% of it.
Right.
He would tell us,
You're going to hell.
The only way, if you commit suicide, you're going straight to hell.
Yeah, that's not true.
And I always doubted it.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, there's
Suicide's
a
not
difference.
I'm
yeah.
like what Jason said. What if this person was mentally ill?
Yeah, that's
I mean,
right.
very mentally ill.
Well, the
That's right.
Lord breathes life to you and He says He takes it away. You can't cheat God. They say that you cheated God.
I'm with
Okay.
You took your
all
own
right.
life, and that's
Okay.
not true.
Okay, let's take a real
you. A preacher to get up in a pulpit and say,
What I'm saying.
let's take a biblical reason. All right, let's find out. Okay, why God doesn't like suicide? Why? Why? It's because everybody has a lineage that's been given to them that they come from and that they will spawn. Your children are all part of it and a part of it. And when somebody of their own volition removes themselves from the game, okay,
Takes away from lineage.
there's all those. It's not just them. It's all those that were supposed to come from Him that were removed. Now,
Right.
all those souls are in a good spot.
Right.
Nobody gets left out. But like I said, none of that is unforgivable.
Right. But the Lord states that He gave you life, and He is the only one
That's right.
that can take it
Okay,
away.
now look. Okay, that's good. They say that, and that's what they use stuff like he's talking about, where they're trying to hurt people like you that have lost a child to suicide. But what does that say?
I'm just saying, it disturbs
What?
me.
Okay, what did it say though? It said, what did it say? Say it again. What you just said.
He that giveth life is the only one that can take it.
Okay,
That's
is
an international
anybody
one.
dead? Is there anybody that is actually dead?
No.
No, no one is dead. The only one that is scheduled to die by name is Lucifer, and the Nephilim as a group for what they did in the book of Genesis.
You're
I
waiting
never
for final
agreed
judgment.
with
That's
it
right.
anyway. I never went back to that church.
If they say
That's
that,
right,
I
right.
don't know.
It-
I don't believe that.
I'm with
Well,
you. I would go back.
There's circumstance though. That one that goes and blows up a bomb and murders people
That's
Huh?
different.
takes life. That's a difference.
Different, but I'm
That's
saying
different.
you-
Yeah, that's
you
exactly
take-
right.
You take a person
But God
that's
took his
very
life.
ill.
Okay, and in his trial, when he goes there, because the
He's
farmer
gonna be-
died, all those people that died testify against the
him.
Here's
murderer.
what I'm
So
trying to say
yeah.
to this preacher, okay? You get a
Oh, you're good, man. If you got
depressed,